Paige, can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay, what a morning already, huh?
This is pretty funny. So, am I correct in understanding that just you and I are on the Twitch now?
Yeah, that's right. So the Twitch stream is seeing, my flying, which I think will be nice and gentle for a bit. I still need to put that black dot for Dave V. That corresponds to something horrible happened as a grade for my landing attempt. So what I'm going to do is, while we're talking, I'm going to go ahead and set 1, 2, 3, set the autopilot. Ah, there we go. Dial back the speed a little bit. And we can chat for a few minutes. Have you got 15 minutes or so?
Yeah, for sure. 15 minutes, lots of questions. I guess the first thing I've been watching, and I'm so curious. There's so many funny things going on. For anyone who's watching on the Twitch, I have zero experience with flight simulations. So, Charles, maybe you could just take a minute to talk about how you got into something like this.
Oh, sure, I'd love to. Before I do that, introduce yourself, though. Folks want to know who you are, too.
Well, for sure. My name is Paige Northway. I'm a graduate student at UW, and I volunteer with our pilot Charles here at the Museum of Flight, which is why I'm doing this interview. And yeah, just helping out with the Give Big is a little more money for the museum. And then my work at UW is mostly on electric propulsion systems, so I'm into satellites instead of airplanes, and hoping to put a little tiny satellite in space in a couple months here.
Fantastic. For those folks joining that aren't from the Seattle area, UW is the University of Washington.
Yes.
Awesome. So you're working on satellites. You're working on the real stuff. I'm just playing with virtual planes.
Yeah, they seem pretty cool to me. So yeah, maybe you could just take a minute. So you're not a pilot.
Bandit 105, 89 miles, 1,900.
Sorry, Jester was just calling out that there's a bandit, but I think I heard what you said, and it's I'm not a pilot. That is totally true. I actually grew up here in the Puget Sound area. My father is a pilot. He's a captain for American Airlines, and he also was an instructor pilot at Boeing Field. So when I was a kid, I would come and see him at work, and we would learn all about airplanes and get to go out on the tarmac and be around all the private aircraft. And then we would go around to the other end of Boeing Field where the Museum of Flight is, and I would get to run around the museum as a kid. So I've had a lot of experience around aircraft, and I think that probably is where that hunger for flying started. And back when I started flying flight simulators, we're talking about like Jetfighter II in the old days. The worst graphics in the world and barely any interactivity. But it didn't matter to me. I got flight sims and I played every single one that I could, and I just watched them grow up and become these amazing products of high technology and immersiveness. And I've followed it all along ever since. It's just been a passion of mine.
Awesome. It's funny because I had no idea they were even a thing. At the end of the very cool video that you put together as a promotion for this event, it shows kind of your setup and what you've got going on there. So on the Twitch, we can only see what you can see. Is there more going on with your setup, or what all are you doing and seeing when you're doing this simulation?
So the things you can see, I think you saw at the end. You saw there was a 3-monitor setup, which gives me a very enhanced field of view, so I can see ahead of me and see off to the left and off to the right. And then I also have pretty extensive input selection. So for what I'm flying today, the F-14, it's called the Warthog HOTAS, or hands-on throttle and stick. It's a very responsive throttle and a stick with lots of buttons, primarily for military aircraft. Ahead of me, though, I also have a flight yoke system and throttle quadrant and engine flight controls for civil aircraft. So a different simulation called X-Plane is one that I play for civil flight, and I would use the yoke and that flight system. Some additional stuff that you won't see. I have a Volair Sim Flight chair, which is very comfy, and honestly the only reason I could do this for 5 hours. And underneath it is a haptic system called the Butt Kicker, which translates particular bass frequencies into rumble motion. So I can actually feel the engines, I can feel the afterburners kick on, I can feel when the speed brake pops out, which to all the folks on Twitch who are making comments about my landing with no speed brakes, wings all the way back, I should have known when the speed brakes, when I wasn't feeling that, when the speed brakes popping out, I should have known something was deadly wrong. But you know, I'm still getting used to all this. Finally, the very newest addition to this whole flight rig is a Philips Hue lighting sync system that's projecting colorful light against the back wall, and it's synced up with the colors that I see. So if I have a full blue sky, those lights are going to be blue and projecting blue against the back wall. If I'm on land, they'll be green or brown. And it adds this really great ambiance to the room that makes me feel like there's a full canopy around me. And it's a subtle effect, but it's really a ton of fun.
That is so cool. I had no idea there was that many things to make it a full simulation. How close is it to flying the real thing?
I wonder. I wonder that often. And you know, the best thing we could do is I think ask real pilots what they think, and maybe that's something that we can explore. I know there's got to be some real pilots joining us today, and maybe they can comment maybe on the Twitch stream, in the chat, about what they think in terms of the difference between, you know, modern civilian accessible simulations and the feeling of actually flying.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think you've got some good people to chat with later. And then you also have a lot of compatriots that you're flying with today. At least the US and the UK, it looks like. How does that work within the program that you use?
Well, the way that this program works, and the simulation we're flying is called DCS World. It has a very robust multiplayer functionality. Now, folks who've been flying this for a while might take issue with me calling it robust. It's definitely quirky and it's got its issues, but I think it's seen a lot of improvements over the years. One of the most notable things about it is it allows for what's called dedicated server hosting. So you can take a computer that you've got and you can set it to host and run independent, and people can connect to it. You can control access levels, what maps that you want to fly, and that kind of thing. And then people can connect from all over the world. The only real difficulty is speed of light issues. So one of the things that we've had this morning is, you know, folks would come in from the UK and check what they call ping against the server, which is sitting literally in my apartment. And if it was too high, then there was too much transit time for the signals, and they wouldn't get a great experience. Some folks are fine with it, others are more sensitive to it, but it's one of those sort of unsolvable problems that we have in multiplayer, is how do you get everyone in the world to be able to play together? And it's a tough problem, and it hasn't been solved yet, and it might be just due to physics.
And physics. And then, so what is sort of your favorite thing about these flight sims? So I was giving me 10 minutes because I got to get back to the carrier. This is like a real time kind of thing, and you're headed somewhere right now, if I understand correctly, from flying long distances. What do you really enjoy about the flight sim?
You know, it's amazing. I think when I was younger and I was flying some of the less advanced flight sims, I was pretty impatient. You know, I really wanted to get into the dogfights, and I really wanted to mix it up and be a real, what they call, Sierra Hotel pilot. And I think that over time, as the fidelity's got better in these flight simulators, I'm finding myself spending more and more time just excited to be up in the air. I know it's not exactly protocol, but I've enjoyed bringing along some music, honestly, and just getting up to altitude, flying along, listening to music, and sort of keep riding herd on the engine and just watching the instruments and kind of just being with folks. The other part I think that's fantastic, and we're going to get back to it a little bit here, is just the communication with other pilots. As you probably know, for private pilots, one of the hardest challenges to get over in your education is learning to and getting the confidence to talk on the radio. It doesn't matter that you're flying metal propelled by fire. That doesn't scare you. It's getting on the radio and 26 November, climb, maintain. It's like everybody tells me that's the hardest thing, but it's what brings an element of community and humanity to these simulators. So when we tune in to the Pilots channel, like we just hear all these folks talking and running the patterns. It's mind blowing, and I think I could stay in that. I think I could stay in that forever. It's such a great community.
Wonderful. I know just being on this call, I'm like, oh gosh, I have to know what to say. We're streaming this. Before I let you get back to that community, if I go make a big donation on the Give Big page, will you do a trick?
Sure, I can do a trick. There are a few that I know, and some of them I might even survive.
Okay. Well, so that you don't have to restart, why don't you do one that that you might survive? And I will go through and donations on the Give Big page, which is what we're online for, raising money for the Museum of Flight.
That's great, Paige. I'd be happy to do that. What we can do is we'll try to do a loop. No, you know what? I'm at 11,000 feet. We'll do a split S. So that's an inverted half loop. So we're going to dive toward the Earth and we're going to pull out of it and proceed on the reciprocal heading at a much faster speed, and if I can do it right, I don't crash into the ocean. So wish me luck. And for those of you on the Twitch stream who are wondering how to donate to the Museum of Flight, just below the video, I think it's on the left-hand side, there's a link at a graphic. It says, click here to donate to Give Big. Is that true, Paige? Do you see that on the Twitch stream?
It should, yes. There's a little link that it should just be right there. There's that little purple box.
So if anybody's interested to do donations today, you click that box that's got the Give Big little heart on it, and we would love it. All the proceeds go to the Museum of Flight here in Seattle, Washington. Paige, I'll let you go. I know there's lots to do. You've got satellites to build. It's just been a pleasure talking with you today.
Yeah, thanks, Charles.
Looks like nails, 3 o'clock.
Another 4 hours to go. I'll be tuning in.
I can do it if I can survive. You might not see this, or you might. There's a MiG-29 that just spawned off my 3 o'clock, so depending on how close it is, I might not survive very long.
Alright, well, I will let you get back to it, and Godspeed.
Thanks so much for joining me, Paige. Bye-bye.
Alright, take care, Giles.